very good evening and a warm welcome. At HydePark tonight, we will speak about presidential candidates, their policies and particular parties and the way forward for Sri Lanka. With almost two presidential candidates named ahead of the presidential polls, two parties coming forward, we thought it would be apt to discuss about the second party, the Janatha Vimukthi Peramuna, who has come forward to name their presidential candidate 20 years after. To talk about this, we've invited to our studios the propaganda secretary of the JVP, MP Vijitha Herath. Good evening and a warm welcome at HydePark.
Yes, good evening.
Like I said, 20 years, for the first time in 20 years, you're naming a presidential candidate. The leader of your party, Anura Kumara Dissanayaka, becomes your presidential hopeful on the 18th, as you announced. But 20 years later, why this change?
Actually, our party stand about executive presidency. It is, we want to abolish the executive presidency from our country. That is our stand. From the very beginning of introducing that system to Sri Lanka in 1978, we opposed that system, and therefore we use some strategy to abolish the executive presidency. As a party, we cannot abolish the executive presidency alone. Therefore, we try to get some support from other outside parties. That's why we supported Mahinda Rajapaksa in 2005. He promised to people to abolish the executive presidency after becoming president, but he did not do that. Then there was another opportunity in 2010, and we introduced Sarath Fonseca as a common candidate to abolish the executive presidency, but it was failed. Then there was another opportunity in 2015, Maithripala Sirisena, he became as a common candidate, and he also promised to people to abolish the executive presidency after becoming president. Then we did not contest in 2015 because of that reason. Not only that reason.
Or did you take a wait and see approach?
Yeah, that's correct. Then Maithripala Sirisena became as an executive presidency in our country, but he also did not do that. But we could have achieved some extent of that target using the 19th Amendment. We reduced some powers of the executive president. Actually, it was a great success, not very great success, but some extent it was a success. But in this time there will be another presidential election, but we have no any hope about UNP government candidate or SLP government candidate. Therefore, we want to create a new alternative power in our country. Most of Sri Lankan people hope create a new leadership, new alternative political leadership. That's why we are going to contest this forthcoming election.
This alternative leadership is going to contest against two major parties. Yeah. Of course, the power has been shifting through these two parties and also the latest coalition of the two major parties. But what is the strategy for the JVP? Actually,
we think though they belongs to two parties, their principles are same. If we consider the UNP party party principle, and if we consider the JO party principle, both are same. Therefore, we are fighting against those principles, not only against those candidates. We want to fight against the principle. There are economic principle, there are political principle, and there are political behaviors. We think there is a good opportunity. Most of Sri Lankan people are hoping a new option, and especially the youth generation. They want to change this corrupted political system. Therefore, I think we can achieve that target actually we are not going to contest as a JVP. We are going to contest as a broad alliance that we have already implemented a new alliance that is called National People's Power, NPP, with the support of so many political groups and so many independent intellectuals and civil society organizations. There are 28 organizations. After forming that broad organization, NPP, we are trying to contest using that organization in the forthcoming presidential election.
On the 18th, when you announced and named your candidate, there was a lot of hope and people were looking forward to a policy pledge also to come along with the naming. People were wanting to see what the JVP policy will be for the country. We did not see that. What's the plan here? Actually, we have introduced our policy long before. On 19th of February in this year, the National Intellectuals Organization, that is called NIO, the professionals, especially the university lecturers, professors and engineers, doctors, there are so many intellectuals are there. They have been starting their campaign among several groups of people. For example, they went before the grassroots level farmers and fishermen and some depressed people, and they collected their suggestions. And not only that, they had a discussion with some high level professionals, and after that, after 2 years later, they prepared a real program. Actually, that is the principle. It is the basic principle of our organization. Using that principle, we are contesting this election. We have already done it. So your policy plan is that pledge has. Are we referring to the punish the conspirators, abolish the executive presidency? Those demands that came along with your campaign title, "The Conspiracy is Defeated, Line Up for Real People's Victory." Are we referring to that pledge?
Actually, that is not a principle. That is that was a step we have to taken. You know very well, the people of our country know very well, in 26th of October, the president of our country has violated our constitution. Therefore, we criticize it and we went before the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court has given a special direct order. It clearly said that president has violated our Sri Lankan constitution. Therefore, and after that, some members of parliamentarians, they did so many wrong things within the parliament and outside the parliament. They destroyed some public property in the parliament, and they throw some chili powder to other members of parliament. Even I myself faced that incident, and therefore we complained to the police, and I complained it to especially the CID also, but anything has not happened.
So are you unhappy with the present government for the past 5 years, with the way in which they've worked and the kind of promises and pledges that came forward back in 2015?
No, we do not agree with that. Actually, the present Maitri Ranil government promised to the people to do many things, but they did not anything. For example, they promised to the people, they arrest some former thieves and punish them, and they will stop all bribery and corruption activities. But they did not arrest anyone, they did not punish anyone, and they did not stop bribery and corruption. Just after becoming the power, they did the well-known robbery, the central bank issue bond
bonds
scam. Actually, the most of people who were voted for the Maithripala Sirisena president, then presidential candidate, they were very upset. Today also, they are very upset. Therefore, we try to fulfill that people's hope.
A common perception was that it was the youth of the country that voted in the government of good governance, that pledged transparency, accountability and good governance into the country. But you just said that you all also want to empower the youth. A youth-led change is expected this year with the JVP also naming a candidate. How do you look at this?
Actually, most of our youths in Sri Lanka are facing so many difficulties and so many problems. Not only the undergraduates and not only the graduates, but also the students who have passed the A-level. They are facing job problem, they are facing the economic problems, they are facing so many social problems. But this present government has not addressed, has not fulfilled their necessities. Therefore, we want to create a new economic system to fulfill their necessities. Without changing the economic system, we cannot do that. We can defeat the former government, the Maithripala Ranil government, but that is not the final target. But we need to change whole economic system. Otherwise, we cannot fulfill the youth generation's necessities. We want to introduce and we want to start the new economy based on the production. Without increasing our domestic production, we cannot achieve that target. Our deficit as far as concerned the import expenses and export revenue. The export revenue is $10,000 million and import expenditure is $20,000 million, the double. How we can achieve that challenge? We want to increase our agricultural production, not only that, the industrial productions. Now, changing that system, we can reduce that balance. Then the youth can obtain so many chances of jobs, and youth can enter our main economic system. Otherwise, we cannot fulfill their necessities.
You expressed dissatisfaction and discouraged with the progress this government has made, but it was common perception too that the JVP was against the Rajapaksa regime and also has been in support of certain policies and certain changes that the present government brought about. But in retrospect, do you still feel it was prudent to have supported the government of good governance now when you look back?
Good governance is a good concept. We totally agree with it. But the Maitri Ranil regime did not fulfill that concept. They totally failed. As far as concerned the modern world, so many developed countries used that concept and they introduced so many new items to fulfill that target. But in our country, they talked about good governance, but they did not nothing about that. Therefore, good governance is a good, without corruption, without malpractices, and good political behavior is actually all people like it. But the problem is this government cannot do it because genetically they have no such actually the feeling about that. Their old genes are based on corruption. Therefore, they cannot change.
But the allegation that you all had to the Rajapaksa regime was also corruption. Was this support to the UNP-led coalition in some way to keep the Rajapaksa regime out of power?
Oh, the Rajapaksa regime and the Maitri Ranil regime are same. Both governments did corruption. Therefore, our stand is defeat all two types of regimes. Rajapaksa government, they did several types of corruptions, and the present government, the Maitri Ranil government, promised to the people they are going to stop, and they punished them, but they did not do that. Therefore, our stand is both are same. Principally both are same. Therefore, we want to defeat both sides, and we want to build the new system.
Right. I think on that note, it's time we take a short commercial break at Hyde Park. To stay with us, we'll return with more. Welcome back. We're talking to MP Vijitha Herath of the Janata Vimukti Peramuna, who has moved into an alliance with several civil organizations and political parties to set up the National People's Power to name the first candidate in 20 years led by a JVP-led alliance. MP Herath, I think you were talking about the kind of work that the current government has entered into and their lack of interest from your perception in moving forward with certain changes that were pledged during the election. But when we talk about the decades of governments that subsequent governments, Sri Lanka has made progress after the independence from $90 of per capita to today's per capita income, and also in the GDP growth. We've seen a gradual progress and elevation to middle income status.
In 1948, we were the second developed country in the among the Asian countries. First country was Japan. We were behind $1 than Japan. But what is the situation today? Totally different. Actually, we could have achieved so many targets, but we did not do that because of the failure of the ruling parties of our country. During last 71 years, the whole UNP and SLFP coalitions did not develop our country. That is, we obtained so many foreign and domestic loans, but we did not use that loan to develop our country. If we analyze the Auditor General's report, it clearly said that we obtained so many foreign loans. Our debt amount today is 12,000 lakhs of crore. It is a very big amount. How can we pay back? There is no any way. Without increasing our production, domestic production, we cannot repay that loan. But the whole governments of our country, UNP and SLFP, they did not increase our domestic production.
Couldn't the JVP play a massive role in preventing this? Because JVP has been in Parliament represented in the past 20 years too. JVP has had a certain power within Parliament where you have been represented in various forums too. Don't you think in that case the JVP is also responsible for the lack of progress Sri Lanka has made?
But we have only few powers in Parliament. We have only 6 members in our Parliament out of 225. We did our duty. We shouted and we criticized and we introduced some alternatives, but government did not accept. not only the economic issue, but also the political issues. We introduced so many, we proposed so many things. For example, just after war in 2009, the war ended 19th of May in 2009. As a party, JVP, we introduced new proposals to build the national unity in our country. We said that in that proposal, take the main national issue as the IDP, internally displaced people's issue. That is the main national issue. Within 3 months, declare all peoples of actually displaced, but government did not that. Another, within 6 months, we can solve that issue using the government support and the opposition support. We were that position, but government did not that. But furthermore, we proposed that to implement the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, but government did not do that. Now 2019, we proposed it in 2009, just after the war. After 4 or 5 years, the Human Rights Commission of UN, United Nations, the Navanidam Pillai proposed to Sri Lankan government to implement Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Before that, we as a party, we proposed that, to do that, but this government did not do that. If we could have done it, actually, the resolution like UN Human Rights Council has imposed on us has not arisen. As a opposition small party, actually we were, today also we are a small party in the parliament, not the outside. No, we did our duty. We, as a party, we also can take that responsibility. But what is the duty of the opposition? Criticize and proposed to the government to do that.
But this government, the JVP has at many instances supported certain changes in legislation, amendments, and JVP's support was seen, although JVP said that they would distance themselves from this coalition. Of course, you do not agree with the Rajapaksa regime too. That's what you said after 2010, or maybe nearing the completion of the war. But this shows that the JVP has worked hand in hand with the UNP-led government.
Not only that, during the Rajapaksa regime also, we were the party who forced then government to do, to continue the war. Otherwise, Rajapaksa government did not do that.
But you withdrew your support from the Rajapaksa regime just before the war ended.
We were opposition, but we did not take any action against the war. We totally supported the war, not to support the, no, we did not support to any other corruption and bribes activities. But we only supported to war. Because of that reason, the Rajapaksa regime can end the war, finish the war. It is okay. We agree with it. But what has happened after the war? The Rajapaksa took it as his personal victory. Actually, it was not the personal victory. It is a whole Sri Lankan people's victory. Even in Tamil people's victory, even Muslim people's victory, and Sinhala Muslim and Tamil people's, whole people's victory. But Rajapaksa took it as his personal victory. After that, he tried to give some opportunities to his family, his brothers and his sons and his relatives. And after that, he created his whole family ruling system. At that time, we totally opposed that system. And after that, that was the reason we wanted to defeat Rajapaksa regime. And after becoming power in the so-called good governance government, using our parliamentary powers, we proposed and we interfered so many changes of constitution and so many new regulations. For example, RTI, we totally supported it, and as a party and outside our organization supported it, because it is not to it was not a support to the government, it was supported to the people. The implementing of RTI Act is more favorable to the people, not to the UNP government or any other government. Therefore, we did many things according to our power. We cannot totally change the system because we had only 6 members in the parliament.
When you say you were not supportive of the good governance government, you were also in the executive committee of the when the government was set up. You came on board with the government to make certain decisions. Let's talk about the 20th Amendment to the Constitution. This was something that the JVP has been vociferous about. You wanted to bring about the 20th Amendment.
The government executive body is the cabinet. We were not in the cabinet. That is the answer of that question. The second thing is we tried to bring the 20th Amendment to abolish the executive presidents. Before the 21st attack, actually there was opportunity. Some Rajapaksa faction members and other sides and TNA also agreed to abolish the executive presidency, and there was a good opportunity before the 21st attack. But after 21st attack, the whole political situation has changed. Now there is no any practical situation to complete that target, but the 20th Amendment is in the agenda.
Are you still of the view that Sri Lanka should bring about the 20th Amendment to the Constitution?
Yeah, our stand is that if we have any chance, we will bring it.
But in the case of the Easter Sunday attacks, do you think if the 20th Amendment was brought about that it would have been easier for the government? For example, if you had to go and search the Eastern province, there would be more regulation in terms of taking authorization from the leaders of that region. So wouldn't that be hindrance to governing the country as a whole, as one Sri Lanka?
During when that incident was happened, the president was there. What has happened? Has he taken any action against that? No. He was abroad, and after he became into Sri Lanka, he blamed to IGP and Secretary of the Defence, and even today he did not take that responsibility. There is executive presidency in our country, but what has happened? The Saharan and other gang blasted their bombs. The executive presidency couldn't stop that. That is the
are you directing the responsibility of what happened in the Easter after the Easter Sunday attacks to solely the president of this country?
The main responsible person is president. The other responsible institution is government. President is the leader of the government. Therefore, he cannot leave that. President and Prime Minister and whole government must responsible for that 21st attack. They did not take any action before 21st of April. They were received so many informations. So many police officers, intelligence agencies and foreign intelligence agencies gave so many information about Saharans before 21st of April. Actually, they sent some information to President and other high-level defense officers during 2018 also. But they did not take any action. Therefore, our blame is the government, including President. President is the leader of the government. Government should responsible for that attack. That's why we took no confidence motion against the government.
But with the no confidence motion against MP Rishad Badiuddin, that coming about, I think the JVP, we saw the JVP coming forward in apparent haste when the confidence vote was mooted on MP Rishad Badiuddin. But with the manner in which the no confidence motion against the government was ushered in, it created doubt on the intentions of the JVP's move, as the opposition said that it designed to keep the UNP from splintering, because as it looked like the UNP was going to break into two groups, since several UNP MPs had already publicly said that they would vote against MP Badiuddin. So couldn't you wait until this motion was brought about?
No, that was not a problem. We said that. Actually, we submitted our no confidence motion after Rishad Badiuddin's no confidence motion. According to the agenda, according to the order of the agenda, Rishad Badiuddin's no confidence motion should have brought firstly. If it was taken into the table, we were supported it, but it does not. It has not happened. That's why our NCM submitted, brought before the Parliament. Otherwise, the Rishad Badiuddin's against the Rishad Badiuddin's NCM has been taken to the debate. We were supported. We totally supported. We were in that stand to support that NCM.
Certain developments in the recent past has made certain factions question the JVP policies, whether the Red Party is carrying out policies of the Green Party. How do you respond to that?
Actually, as a party, our stand is same and strict. It is correct. But if we want to gather and collect so many organizations and so many different progressive people, we have to deviate some extent. For example, forming that alliance, the National People's Power, there are different types of organizations. They are not JVP'S. They do not believe our principle totally, but we can join with them. Our target is to change this political system and introduce a new economic and political system. There are no big differences. Therefore, you can say red and green and the coalition of red and green, not UNP green. That's green means the environment green. The progressive environment groups are there in the world. That's right, the red green alliance, not UNP.
No inclination whatsoever towards the UNP green.
No, never. UNP principle is total different as far as concerned the JVP principle. The green, I am explaining about green, the worldwide green. There is a color. It is called the social democratic path. It is okay, but not the UNP elephant green.
With this election campaign happening, obviously you have to bash one party or the other. Would you be criticizing this government in your election campaigning stages or the Rajapaksa regime? We will criticize the Rajapaksa regime and the Maitri Ranil regime, both, because I have already said that. As principally, both are same. Therefore, we will criticize both sides. Right. It's time we take a short break. We'll return at Hyde Park. To stay with us. At Hyde Park, we've been talking about JVP policies and the way forward for Sri Lanka with the propaganda secretary of the JVP MP, Vijitha Herath, joining us at Hyde Park. MP Herath, I think I'd like to focus a little on foreign policy. Given the background that there has been a lot of criticism over a decision taken by President Maithripala Sirisena in the appointment of the commander of the army, Lieutenant General Shavendra Silva. The US was the first to criticize this move, saying Sri Lanka is violating promises made to the UNHRC, and also that given the fact that he is accused of alleged human rights violations, he should not have been appointed as army commander. What is the JVP stance here?
Sri Lanka is a sovereign country. Therefore, we have a right to take decision, economic decision and political decision. Therefore, President and the government has a right to take a decision, and the President has a right to appoint any person to any position. The USA has no any right to interfere that. It is totally wrong, and we don't like it, and we criticize it. USA is an outside country, and we are not criticizing appointments of the USA. Who is the army commander, who is the navy commander? We are not criticizing that. It is their duty, because USA is another country. Likewise, Sri Lanka is a separate sovereign country. We have a right to appoint any person. If he has any charges, then the people can go before the court, and the court can give a decision. I think the Savendra Silva has not punished, or he has not charged any offences. Until he will be punished, he is not a guilty person. Therefore, he has a right to appoint that person. That is our stand.
This is obviously the view of the opposition too at present. They too call to protect the sovereignty of the nation, saying this is an internal matter. But certain ministers of the UNP we did see saying that Sri Lanka is deviating from foreign policy, especially because we co-sponsored the UNHRC resolution 30/1 along with the US, United Kingdom and certain other countries.
I don't know about UNP's stand and some ministers of UNP, but our party stand is that.
In that case, it seems, what I'm also trying to get at, MP Herath, is that the opposition, they're talking about national security, sovereignty of the country. And it seems that from what you say, the JVP and the opposition are of the same stance at this current given moment, talking about national security and protecting sovereignty of the nation, protecting from foreign forces. Also about the delay in provincial council elections. You've been vocal about it, so has the opposition been vocal about it. So does that mean there is a possibility for you to work with the opposition at this given moment?
There are many differences also there. But as far as concerned the sovereignty of a country, JVP, I think the people of our country can study history of JVP. We were devoted our lives of 60,000 lives of our cadres on behalf of sovereignty of our country during 1988-89. Why they devoted their lives? Not only their personal issues. Actually, they devoted their lives on behalf of the country. Not only during that period, but also today also. We concern the national security and the public security. National security is one thing and public security is another thing. The national security is we have to protect our country. We don't give any chance to divide our country. That is the other thing. The public security is the people have a right to save their lives. The students have a right to go to school freely, and parents have a right to go to their places, and workers have a right to go to their workplaces. After 21st of April, actually the public security has fallen down. The present government couldn't take any action on behalf of protect the public security on our country. We are concerned both national security and public security. We cannot implement public security without implementing national unity in our country. If we can achieve that target, that means build the national unity in our country, then public security will be automatically saved.
There has been perception and allegation that the present-day Janata Vimukthi Peramuna (JVP) is veering off from the principles and policies of the founding leader of your party, the late Rohana Vijayveera. Especially with back in the day, he saw foreign influence. He was against foreign US influence in Sri Lanka, US eyeing, he predicted US eyeing influence in Sri Lanka, and also Indian involvement. But again, with the change of the 2015 change in government, the perception was that this change was led and funded by American imperialism. And the JVP too was against the Rajapaksa regime at the time. So does this mean the JVP has come out sided with the other side of this equation?
No, our stand is same. During the Rohana Vijayveera, our founder members period, and today our stand is same. We have not been changed on in that issue. Influencing of our country is not correct. The USA or India or any other country has no any right to interfere our internal matters. That is our stand. As far concerned the criticism of JO, who signed Sri Lanka USA AXA agreement in 2007? Gotabaya Rajapaksa. Gotabaya Rajapaksa was the Secretary of Defense at that time. He and the Ambassador of USA, Roberto Blake, both of them signed that agreement, AXA agreement, that cross services defense agreement between Sri Lanka and USA. Actually, that is the violating of our, it is totally betraying of our country's sovereignty. It has happened during the Rajapaksa regime.
This AXA agreement, it was renewed in 2017 from 2010 after a 10-year period, but the content has changed drastically, with the 7-page document enlarging into a multi-page document of some 70-80 pages, if I'm not mistaken.
Same document, same content. There are some changes, but who started that agreement? Defense Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa. He was the person who was responsible betraying of that our sovereignty. He cannot leave that. Then the present government also, Maitreyan government also continue that agreement furthermore. It is also wrong. We criticize both. Not only
the SOFA and the MCC. Now, the US is telling Sri Lanka that there may be an impact to trade and military ties with Sri Lanka, especially with the appointment of Army Chief. But this means that some of the US funding and support will be cut back if that's the case. But about SOFA and MCC, the Millennium Challenge Corporation, this has been controversial.
That agreement, not MCC. SOFA agreement. It was also signed in 1995. This is not the first time. During the Chandrika Bandaranaike period, at that time Mahinda Rajapaksa was also in that government. All JO members, the senior JO members were also in that government. Even GL Pires, he was the main character in that government. It was happened in 1995. Now this government also try to continue it furthermore. The beginning of that SOS agreement actually was happened in 1995. Both governments, SLFP and UNP, both governments, they agreed in front of USA. That is the reality. Not only the UNP government, but also the SLP government. In this time, they are going to sign another new agreement that is called MCC. MCC is somewhat different from other defense agreements. It is economic agreements. There are some criticism. We criticize it. Actually, as a party, we were the party who raised that question in the parliament firstly. Our member Bimal Ratnayaka submitted motion about that agreements. After that, it took those agreements took into the debate, and we were debated. As a party, we don't like sign any agreements with any other countries while betraying our economic sovereignty and our national security.
Finally, we have just 1 minute, but does this mean the JVP will not look for a political future with either party?
We invite all people of our country who were in SLFP, who were in UNP, please come forward from that all parties. There is a new option. We want to create a new alternative system, economic and political system in our country. Actually, we can give a real strong leadership for that. We invite all of you to come and join with us, and then we can form a new regime to our country to implement the real democracy in our country and real good governance in our country, and develop our country using our national resources and human resources. We have a dream, and I think you also have that dream. We can achieve that target.
Thank you very much, and all the very best.
Okay, thank you very much.
We had with us parliamentarian of the Janata Vimukti Peramuna, MP Vijitha Herath, who is the propaganda secretary of the party, joining us at Hyde Park tonight. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you again next week at the same time.